like my colleagues, I'm very pleased to stand in the House and speak about this bill, about C-41, an act to implement the free trade agreement between Canada and the Republic of Korea. Let me start by telling you just how pleased and proud I am of my colleague, our trade critic, the Member of Parliament for Vancouver Kingsway. He has been on this file now for a couple of years, and he's done a masterful job of carrying forward with the New Democratic Party vision on trade. And he has analyzed any agreements that have been made public, and that by any stretch of the imagination they're few and far between when we get all the details. But that member has done a great job not only examining and analyzing what we do find out, but speaking with people involved in trade from one end of this country to the other and around the world to help develop our policy. Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying that New Democrats want a strategic trade policy where we restart multilateral negotiations and where we sign trade deals with developed countries that have high standards and with developing countries that are on progressive trajectories. These countries like Japan, India, Brazil, and South Africa, for example. This is an agreement. The precise terms of this agreement, perhaps, are not what we would have negotiated. But fair to say that we think that surprise, surprise, it's not a bad deal. On balance, there are some concerns that we have, but it's a deal that we think deserves to be supported, because unlike the Canada-China FIPA, for example, this agreement does not tie the government's hands for 31 years, or CETA, for example, where the investor-state dispute settlement mechanism chapter would continue to apply for 20 years after the cancellation of the deal. Under the Korea Free Trade Agreement, it can be fully canceled after 6 months. You know, it's important, Mr. Speaker, that members of this House, and I say particularly to the Liberal Party, understand that it's important to make sure you use your head when you're negotiating any deal, to make sure that you understand what's contained within that deal. You know, we, as I said when I started out, we certainly support the idea of trade, but we need to think about it in a responsible manner, and we need to approach it as any democratic government would, in a common sense fashion, and make sure that it's in the best interests of the people of our country, that we don't make deals like under the investor-state dispute mechanism provision, for example, that tie the hands of subnational governments. We need to understand that we are a democracy and that we uphold democratic principles in this country, and that we are not going to give up the principles. We're not going to give up the rights of citizens and governments to make decisions over purchasing, over matters that they determine through democratic process, decisions that need to be made. We are not going to give up those rights to corporations, either here or elsewhere, Mr. Speaker. So what do we want? New Democrats want to deepen Canada's trade linkages with the Asia-Pacific region, something that we recognize is essential to maintaining Canadian prosperity in the 21st century. We want the government to do more to support our automotive industry, for example. We understand in this deal that there's some concerns about the impact that reducing that 6.5% tariff will have on the automotive sector. That we have to recognize, I think, that the automotive sector is under increasing pressure, global pressure, as a result of competition, and this government should be participating actively with the automotive sector to make sure that it is providing the supports necessary to maintain a vital and and vibrant industry that provides a lot of family-sustaining jobs. We want, Mr. Speaker, we support breaking down trade barriers, but believe government should provide the support Canadian industry needs to remain competitive in a more open world. We agree with various organizations and individuals who say that governments need to do more than simply sign trade agreements, must do more to promote Canadian exports, attract investments, and help Canadian companies penetrate the South Korean and other Asian markets. Finally, let me say that we want a strategic trade policy, as I said earlier, where we restart multilateral negotiations and where we sign trade deals with developed countries that have high standards and with developing countries that are on a progressive trajectory. So what have we got here? Well, as I think has been explained by my colleague, our trade critic, we have three main criteria for trade agreements that we look to in helping to evaluate them, Mr. Speaker. Number one, is the proposed partner one who respects democracy, human rights, adequate environmental and labor standards, and Canadian values? I would suggest to you that South Korea is such a country. South Korea, since it's emerged from a dictatorship in 1987, transitioned into a vibrant multi-party democracy with an active trade union movement, relatively high wages, a diverse civil society, and freedom of expression. In fact, in recent years, Mr. Speaker, we can learn a great deal from a country like South Korea. They've invested billions in an ambitious green growth strategy aimed at improving energy efficiency and boosting renewables and green technology. They clearly respect high environmental labor standards and share our values of human rights and democracy. That's number one, Mr. Speaker. Number two, is the proposed partner's economy of significant or strategic value to Canada? Well, I would suggest in this case, again, South Korea passes the test. They're Canada's seventh most important trading partner, third in Asia, behind the two largest economies, China and Japan. 2013, Canadian exports to South Korea totaled $3.4 billion, while Korean exports to Canada total $7.3 billion. We export the same amount to South Korea as we export to France and Germany. We import the same amount as we do from the UK, Mr. Speaker. This is Canada's first trade agreement with an Asian country, and it provides an opportunity to take advantage of the Pacific region, and that's extremely important, Mr. Speaker. Number three, are the terms of the proposed deal satisfactory? Well, again, Mr. Speaker, I suggest in this case they are satisfactory. Jobs. The agreement will create a level playing field for Canadian companies, Canadian workers exporting to South Korea. In agriculture, the free trade deal, Mr. Speaker, is essential. Canada has suffered significant losses in market share of Canadian agricultural exports to Korea following the implementation of the Korea-U.S. FTA. Aerospace, in the aerospace sector, there's general support for Korean FTA among manufacturing sectors, notably Bombardier and other aerospace industry associations. The deal will gradually remove 100% of industrial tariffs. Estimated, Mr. Speaker, that there is a value of $1.9 trillion worth of business being generated or to be generated by this economy. Seafood. Seafood, you know, Mr. Speaker, in seafood there's a 47% tariff on Canadian exports to Korea. This will be eliminated. It's a big deal for seafood exporters in my community on the East Coast and the West Coast. Forestry and wood products, the same thing, Mr. Speaker. This is a good deal. I told you before when I mentioned that there are concerns about the impact that this deal may have on the auto sector. We're calling on the government to pay attention to the concerns. They are very legitimate. and we want this government to do more to support the auto industry in Canada. And we will propose solid, effective policy measures to strengthen the Canadian auto sector. It's a move that needs to happen, Mr. Speaker, and so I would indicate to you that once again, we're using our heads when it comes to analyzing a deal, a trade deal, and in this case, we give thumbs up. Thank you.